You're listening to Warrior Talk with Heather Thomas Van Deren and Brant Fricker. Get inspired. Be empowered. Warrior Talk.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Warrior Talk. We are excited to have you. As always, get inspired, be empowered. That's what we're about. We want to always empower you to do something with what we bring to you every week, because these topics, they're hot topics, Brad.
They are. They're some of the hottest topics, and we're not talking about a clothing store in the mall in the 80s. We're talking about controversial things that you quite frankly don't hear talked about a lot. Well, maybe lately you are more. I'm seeing an increase in boldness, people that are even from the pulpit. And that's really good to hear, because we've needed that now more than ever. Of course, you got fantastic pastors like Woody Robinson and Jeremy Sutton and Ron Till, and the list goes on and on and on and on. People speaking the truth. And Heather Thomas Van Deren, Heather, you've always been a bold witness to be a warrior for Christ. A lot of people say warrior. That's kind of, let me tell you, folks, you're late to the dance if you don't realize we're in a spiritual war between good and evil, light and darkness, and it is heating up like never before. Even from the top down in this nation, even in attempts to try to cancel Jesus. Well, you can't do that. And so excited about talking about today's topic, which is
keep your circle small. How many of you have heard us mention that numerous times? There is some real truth to that, and we're going to kind of walk you through it today. Brant, actually, I've always kind of done that, but when you and I first became friends, we did a lot of talking, a lot of heart sharing. That's how we realized that we needed to do this show together, wasn't it, Brant?
It was. I met you at GLC thanks to your cousin, and I thought, you know what, we've really got to get her on some of the things we were working on, and wanted to know what you're about. And
well, one of the things that you really impressed upon me was you said numerous times, hey, Heather, just keep your circle small. And actually, even though I had sort of been doing that throughout my lifetime, I realized the importance of actually being strategic about it, being always aware of who is in your circle, because sometimes there's enemies in the camp.
Some of your enemies are closest to you, folks. It's a blessing, but it's also a painful thing when you learn who your real friends are. And when you learn who your real friends are, it's usually during a crisis, whether it's their crisis or whether it's your crisis. If people drop off the face of the earth, sometimes that's a coping mechanism. I've been guilty of that. I love the people that are in my small circle, but it's easy, especially if you've had some trauma in your past or other things. You don't want to be a burden to anybody. Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about fair weather friends. They're there when times are good for you, but they're not there when times are bad. Or they rewrite the narrative. Maybe they weren't there for you, or maybe they weren't there for a loved one. Maybe they are even hostile to you, or hostile to a loved one. But boy, history seems to change in the midst of crises, and you find out who your real friends are. It's been said that a true leader is not recognized until after they're gone. And then people use monuments to build stones to build monuments to them, using the same stones they threw at them when they were around. So it's interesting how narratives change and how stories change when you find out who your true friends are. But your ride or die true friends, they're with you, good and bad. They'll stand with you and support you, and we also have a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and that's Jesus.
Amen. He's the best. I tell you what, he's been walking right beside me through a lot of recent trials and heartaches, and it's so good to know that he does stick closer than a brother. He's awesome. He's everything to me, guys, and that's one of the very most important things about us on Warrior Talk is if you don't know him, please know him today, because a lot of this stuff we talk about, well, all this stuff we talk about. You can't really apply it to your life without him as your Lord and Savior. Isn't that right?
That's right. And, again, teaching world religions so many years ago, to learn, because you have to learn it even more than your students that you're teaching it to, but to learn that the only religion that is based on what's been done for you and not what you do is believers in
Yeah.
Jesus. And of course,
Yeah.
and if you're going to talk about religion, what is perfect religion? It's taking care of widows and orphans, folks. That's perfect religion. If you want to get biblical about it. I was talking to, again, Brad earlier, and, there's people who they're happy to argue. As a matter of fact, they troll people. They make hateful comments and they want to debate. And it's most of the time, those are the people who don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They're not contributing. And a quote that I made up that I wasn't able to share with Brad yet was, in the hall of history, you will never find a monument built to a critic. Only us imperfect people who had
Yeah.
moments of greatness. And of course, God is what makes anybody great. All good things come from God. So if you're a critic, well, good luck. You contribute nothing to society. And on a humorous note, people who are hateful and slanderous and they gossip, and they don't know Jesus, Heather, because Jesus said that you won't do that. We're told in the word to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but consider others better than yourselves, for this is the attitude of Christ. Well, we'll just cut those kind of scriptures out. But it's important, folks, that you put your trust in God. Love people, but trust God.
That's right.
If you're going to trust people, keep your circle small.
Yes. And know who your peeps are. Yeah. There's something else that I just want to share, Brant, that I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but sometimes you don't really realize who your true friends are until a crisis. Now, there's always going to be in a crisis where all of a sudden you realize who you thought were your friends were not your friends. But I had a situation a long time ago when I went through a pretty big trial in my life, and this one girlfriend of mine who I never really understood that she was like one of my best friends, and I just didn't realize it. She was there through thick and thin. She was not one of those flamboyant people that was always on the scene and always talking. And she was just quiet and meek. And she just chose to stand by me and just be my friend, not judging, not even really giving advice, but just being there for me. And when I realized what a treasure she was to me after all these years, I felt awful that I hadn't recognized it. I did. I cried and I said, I am so ashamed to admit that I just realized how much of a treasure you are to me. Because while others may, go with the wind, they just change and flow, and you never know from one moment to the next if they're going to like you or hate you.
Right.
There's this one friend just rock steady, and ever since then I have definitely included her in my small circle. It's like ding, it's like I finally got it. But there's those people too that you don't realize until you go through something really rough that they were really part of your small circle. Has that ever happened to you, Brant?
Yeah, it has. As you were talking, Heather, I thought, I was reminded, it might surprise people that an incredible philosopher of our time is Mike Tyson. Might
Yeah.
surprise you. Don't mistake his lisp for not having absolute genius in life experience and wisdom now, in his older years. But not everyone not everyone who you think is your enemy is your enemy, and not everyone who you think is your friend is your friend. He said that in so many ways, and sometimes you find that out,
Yeah.
at the most inopportune times. But yeah. Sometimes there might be someone who they may not be really aggressive in pursuing a relationship with you, but they're there. And I've been that friend too, Heather, where
Yeah.
there's people, they might not hear from me a lot, and I might not hear from them. But when they're
Mhm.
going through something,
Yeah.
I've been watching, and I jump in and, hey, praying for you, man. I'm there with you. And we need friends, you know. I remember, gosh, some of the best friends that I have had, I didn't know them at all. Some of them were public figures, and they had a failure, and people just licked their chops and delighted in their failure or delighted in their tragedy. Some of them couldn't help it. They had no
Yeah.
control over what happened in their lives.
Yeah.
And so I would find myself running to the aid and saying, hey, you okay? You don't know me, but are you okay? Because
Yeah.
I admire, you know, your calling, and would even bring some of them on the air, not to go after them, but to encourage them and give them a chance to give their side of the story. But you know, when
Mhm.
I went through my situation, it was amazing. The scores and scores of people. Of course, mine was a a divorce that was almost 15 years overdue, very toxic and very damaging. And when it started affecting the children negatively, it was time to make a
Yeah.
change. And who was there for me? Nobody. Maybe close family, but you find out who
Mhm.
your friends are, and then it was very interesting to find that out. But that is the times that sometimes you have to identify with the loneliness of Jesus, you know, who could not
Mhm.
entrust himself to anybody, because the word says, for he knew what was in the heart of a man. But those who
Yeah.
take on the characteristics of Jesus, those can be your true friends. They love you. They want you to be successful. Okay. They're not trying to hold on to your coattails, right? They're not trying
Mhm.
to use you. They love you whether you do something for them or not, right? And they are there when times are hard.
Yeah, those are the ones I call forever friends, and they pretty much stay in your circle. But you know, Brent, there's also seasonal friends. There's those that God places in your life at a certain point in time because they have an assignment for you, with you, or maybe you even have an assignment for them or with them, and they're seasonal. And you usually know when it's time to let them go. And here's, you know, the buzzword nowadays is toxic relationship.
Yeah.
You know, if you notice that this just kind of come up over the past year or so,
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth to that. And when you recognize that, that's usually when it's time to loosen your grip and let those people move on. Because if they're not part of your destiny, they are actually part of your past and you're just holding on to them. It's time to let them go. And that doesn't mean you have to not like them anymore or have disgust for them.
Sure.
We're supposed to still love, but it's okay to love from a distance. It's all right to do that.
It is okay. And it's also biblical too. You know, we are commanded to love. We're not commanded to fellowship.
Hmm.
You hear that? We're commanded to love, but we're not commanded to fellowship.
That's right.
Well, what about don't forsake the assembly? That's different. Okay. But if someone has acted as your enemy, okay. I had a childhood friend. He couldn't stay away from hanging around with me, but he hated me. He hated me. And he was jealous of me. And he shouldn't have been. He had everything going for him. But not everyone, again, who you fellowship with is your brother or sister. And Jesus learned that the hard way when he could not entrust himself to a man. I mean, Judas, you know,
Yeah.
we paint Judas. Judas would have passed every pastoral or ministerial or eldership interview. He was he was well educated. He was well connected. Okay. He had panache. Okay. He had everything, but he betrayed Jesus. Now he didn't betray Jesus because he was those things, but isn't it interesting? If you look at the layout of how they would lay out the tables at Passover, people forget the Last Supper was Passover, folks. It's a horseshoe shape, and
Hmm.
you would lean on your I think it was your left arm,
Oh,
But you would lean and recline, and then you would,
yeah.
right. And so you were stacked like that. And if you look at that layout, Jesus knew that Judas would betray him, and he still gave him the place of honor. And of
Yeah.
course, Judas wasn't perfect, but there was a time that night, it said, and Satan entered Judas. I mean, the deal was done, but still, you have to put your trust in God. And, just like you alluded to earlier, Heather, there are some friends in your life, folks, that they're branches. And when the wind blows too hard, they're gone. Some are
Mhm.
leaves. When things get tough, they're gone. But some are roots, right? Or you know what I mean? Or some are planted right beside you. And those are your
Yeah.
friends. And if you can meet the Lord and have just one true friend in
Yeah.
this culture,
Hmm.
you're a very blessed person.
That's right. Yeah, I used to tell my daughter that when she was in school, there's so many people that vie for your attention and they want to be in this group or that group. High school is torture, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is torture. But I used to tell her, I'd say, honey, you're going to be fortunate to make it to adulthood with just a couple of what I call forever friends.
Yeah.
Most people would just give anything to have that. Some don't have a forever friend at all. And as you grow and you mature, you learn how God positions those people into your life, whereas you might not have seen them before.
Right.
You might have not have recognized them, but Jesus puts them into your life. But remember this for toxic people in your family, in your relationships,
Right.
in your workforce, anywhere like that. And Brant, this is from your Red Pill Prophet book. You guys need to pick it up. Short commercial. But what you can tolerate, you'll never change.
I wish that I had made that up. I actually heard that, in a sermon, and I don't claim that as mine, but yeah, that's in the
That's
book.
okay. Yeah.
What you can tolerate, you'll never change. And sometimes we think we know what we want, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we want to hold on. As an encouragement, though, you will have the best friendships if you learn this next thing. um Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a friendship, okay, if you give too much of your emotional identity to somebody, you lose yourself. That happens a lot in codependent relationships. That happens a
Mhm.
lot in toxic relationships. That also happens in non-toxic relationships where one person is doing all the giving and the other is doing all the receiving. And then sometimes it also happens if you're in a situation where you're a caregiver, and the nature of the relationship has changed, and you're kind of alone, but you're caregiving. Or just normal marriages today, boy meets girl, there's a little attraction there, you know. She's beautiful, he's this mysterious man that needs to be, captured or tamed, or rather, and they come together, and oh, there's everything's gifts in the beginning. There's gifts, oh, the
Mhm.
first time we kiss, the first time you make my spaghetti that I love, or all the everything's gifts. But in our culture, what happens is these people, because I do this, and you better do this because I do this, and you do this. And now both people begin to lose their individuality and lose their emotional identity. And they give so much of their emotional investment to each other, they lose themselves. And that's when you have this cycle of there's romance, right? And even in casual friendships, there's kind of a honeymoon period of romance.
Yeah.
Everything's new, fun, even if it's, innocent. There's romance, but then there's reality. And when there's reality, then that will lead to resentment if you've
Mhm.
done this. And if you're not careful in a marriage, in a relationship, even in a friendship, there's a type of romance or bromance or sister man, right? Appropriately, reality, resentment, and then revenge.
Mm.
And so, if you're a married couple, if you're past the honeymoon stage, and it always goes, and you are in the reality stage, guess what? You can keep bringing back the romance stage with songs, moments, memories, whatever. You can go back there. You have to bring it back, and we could do a book on that. But basically, the progression of our relationships, especially in the Western world, they're just different. And so sometimes you have to take back your emotional investment. If you've given away so much of your emotional investment to a friend that hurt you, or a spouse that hurt you, and they're just fine, you're driving away and you're wrecked, and you're hurting and all, that's a sign that you've given too much of your emotional investment to that relationship and not enough to God. So there's a way for people who've given away too much of their individuality and emotional investment to become individuals again, who choose to stay together, but they give the appropriate emotional investment to each other and to God. And so
There you go.
it makes sense. So what I'm saying is, have grace for people. Some people come into your life for a season, some don't. If you're in a marriage and you want to stay together, well, it's possible, to become individuals again who choose to stay together. Then you can get back to the gifts and not so
Yes,
much expectation, right?
you know, I think about a threefold strand or cord is not easily broken. So that can apply in any relationship. Being unequally yoked with an unbeliever
Right.
can be devastating to your spiritual being, because
Yeah.
you can forget who you are in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You can forget your destiny, forget your calling, forget your mission, your ministry.
Right.
And because you have this influence over here, and if it's separate from God, then guess who it's really toward, and that is the enemy, Satan, the devil, whatever, you know. And so you're pulled away from who you were created to be and what your destiny really is. You've got to make sure that no matter how you're yoked, whether it's girlfriend, guy friend, or coworkers or whatever, put them in their proper place. If they don't know Jesus and you are a born again believer, you're a Jesus follower, and you're sold out, don't let them into your small circle. You can still minister to them, you can still
Right.
witness to them, but they will destroy you. They may not be intending to do that. It just
Yeah.
happens.
They may not be. Everyone after all these years, I still realize everyone still wants to be on TV. Hi, mom, right? Well, a lot of people still want to be in the know. So they may try to be your friend because they want to be in the know. They want to feel special and important, but they're not able to keep a confidence. And so sometimes they don't realize what they're doing because they don't know who they are. And then there's people who are toxic as well. AP Powers Jr., though, has a great quote here during this. A friend shared with me, there are three types of people in your life: friends who are there for a season, friends who are there for a reason, and then there are friends who are there for life. And we need to discern who is in our lives. Now, going to toxic relationships, sometimes, Heather, what do you like to tell people to jump in a lake, or tell them, you're wasting the air that flowers need to breathe, that in your negativity, you want to tell them that they have less worth than a dirty, empty white paper bag at Walmart blowing across the parking lot. But you don't want to say that. Have you ever felt that way, though?
Oh no, no, no. I'm so perfect. I don't ever think like that.
Oh
You
man.
know, the easiest way to put that is not my circus, not my monkey. Now, you know, and nothing personal, but it's just not my problem.
Uh-huh.
And you just have to just step away, because there's some people that are so set against you,
Mm-hmm.
even though they claim to be your friend, that they're always looking for a fight or an argument. They're always wanting
Yeah.
to debate over something with you. And I don't know about you guys, that just wears me out. It takes so much energy because first of all, I'm not very good at comebacks. And second of all, I don't have time for that.
Well,
And
it's
go ahead.
well, I didn't want to interrupt. You're just too busy doing the ministry, doing the work of God, of the kingdom.
Well, yeah, I love living for him, and I don't, it's hard to have tolerance for people that don't see how much value there is in serving a risen God. We just had Easter, um,
Right.
Resurrection Sunday. I hope that everybody enjoyed that. I hope that everybody took the opportunity to really let it soak in what, like you said, Brent, has been done for us.
What's been done
And
for us? Yeah.
yeah, there's toxic people, there's gossipers, there's people that are malicious and they're backstabbers, and maybe they used to be in our camp, or maybe they've never been in our camp. What are you going to do about them? The biggest thing that you can do is turn from them and pray for them,
Right.
because Jesus loves them just every bit as much as he loves you. And like you said, we're really not any more important than the next guy. It's just that some of us have, we've picked it up. We've picked
Yeah.
up what Jesus is laying down, and we know who we are now. We know
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
assignment. We know our purpose for living. And it
And
really does make living a lot easier when you know what your purpose is.
well, you can take a posture of gratefulness. I'm grateful to Ricky Ferris. He's what he was watching. I believe he still is. We wouldn't be doing this warrior talk. One for your cousin Ricky Ferris, a biblical strategist, is what I tell him. I see that in him, and great things in him. But I have a feeling though that we're going to have a part two, Heather, because this gets a whole lot heavier, folks.
It
With your
does.
friends and family. But something just clicked with me one day, and it was, you know what? I don't have any enemies, but one. I only have one enemy, and
Yeah.
that's Lucifer. And when it comes to trying to defend yourself, I learned from David. Stop trying to defend. David did not defend himself. He was in the right when he was being pursued by Paul relentlessly. He was anointed as king. He had a spear hurled at him. It was abusive. It was toxic. He was trying to kill it. And even then, he said, "I won't touch the Lord's anointed." He took that aggression and put it towards the enemy. So sometimes you have to stop the world. Be grateful for the friends that have been in your life. Some of you need to cut people from your herd because they're toxic, and you know it, and they know it, and they'll usually fall off on their own if you just keep moving forward and keep your eyes on your destiny that God has laid out for you, which is to help God fulfill his mission for no man to perish, but for every man to come to the knowledge of the
Mm.
truth. But understand that, but just keep moving forward. You only have one enemy, and that's Lucifer and his minions. Other people, you know what? Hey, love you, no shame, no blame, but be clean, forgive everybody, forgive yourself, and begin to move forward for the days ahead.
Just ask God to reveal to you what is your destiny if you don't know what it is, and who are the people that he has chosen for you to be in that small circle.